situation in Yemen took a dramatic and violent turn as Saudi Arabia unleashed a wave of airstrikes on the port city of Mukalla, a vital economic and logistical gateway on the country's southeastern coast. Residents described deafening explosions echoing across the harbor as plumes of fire and smoke rose from dock facilities and nearby warehouses, triggering panic among civilians and port workers. Riyadh said the strikes were based on intelligence indicating an imminent weapons shipment allegedly bound for separatist factions operating in the south, warning that such arms transfers threatened to shift the balance of power on the ground. Saudi military officials framed the attack as a defensive and preventative action, arguing that allowing advanced weapons to reach rival forces would endanger regional security and prolong Yemen's war. The sudden bombardment forced ships to suspend operations, disrupted trade routes through the Arabian Sea, and highlighted the strategic importance of Mukalla at a moment when control over ports has become central to the wider struggle for influence in Yemen. Behind the airstrikes, a deep political rupture was rapidly coming into view as Saudi Arabia issued an unusually blunt warning to the United Arab Emirates, signaling a serious breakdown in coordination between the two Gulf allies. Saudi officials accused Abu Dhabi of backing moves that they described as extremely dangerous, arguing that external support for southern separatists was pushing Yemen toward permanent division. Riyadh directly linked the alleged UAE role to the sudden territorial gains made by the Southern Transitional Council, saying those advances would not have been possible without foreign assistance, funding, and weapons. The language used by Saudi leaders was notably harsher than in past disputes, reflecting growing frustration within the kingdom over what it sees as a parallel power structure emerging in southern Yemen outside its influence. Diplomats and regional analysts noted that the warning marked one of the clearest public acknowledgements yet of rival agendas inside the coalition that once claimed a unified goal, raising fears that political competition between Riyadh and Abu Dhabi could now spill openly into military confrontation. On the ground, the balance of power in southern Yemen was shifting rapidly as UAE-backed Southern Transitional Council forces pressed their advantage, sweeping into new districts and tightening their grip over key cities, ports, and military installations. Checkpoints bearing STC flags multiplied along major roads, while rival units loyal to other factions withdrew or collapsed under pressure. Civilians reported growing anxiety as armed convoys moved through residential areas and the sound of sporadic gunfire became more frequent. The STC leadership dismissed Saudi accusations of weapons smuggling, portraying itself as the legitimate defender of southern interests and accusing Riyadh of targeting the wrong enemy. In defiant statements, STC officials vowed retaliation for the Mukalla airstrikes, warning that continued attacks would trigger a wider response. Their rhetoric, combined with their expanding territorial control, heightened fears that southern Yemen was sliding toward a new phase of conflict, one in which competing allies could soon find themselves backing opposing fronts on the battlefield. The bombing of Mukalla has pushed Yemen's war into a far more dangerous and unpredictable phase, as tensions between Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates spill beyond diplomacy into open military signaling. What was once a fragile partnership against common adversaries now appears fractured, with competing visions for Yemen's future driving increasingly aggressive actions. Analysts warn that a proxy confrontation between Saudi-backed and UAE-backed forces could ignite new fronts across the south, drawing in additional regional actors and further destabilizing the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden shipping lanes. For civilians, the escalation threatens another surge in displacement, economic collapse, and humanitarian suffering in a country already exhausted by years of war. As the Southern Transitional Council hardens its stance and Saudi warplanes continue to assert dominance from the air, hopes for de-escalation grow dim, and Yemen risks becoming the stage for a broader regional power struggle where former allies now stand on opposite sides of an intensifying conflict.